Hi guys, it's your boy Pavi's back with an emergency video podcast just to discuss what's been happening in tennis in the last 24 to 48 hours or so. And surprisingly not, it's nothing to do with Novak Djokovic for a change. So that is something new. But obviously I'm here to talk about what's happened with Jannik Sinner, the current world number one, who has, we've been told that failed two separate drug tests that were taken in March for taking a substance called plausible, which is, excuse me for my pronunciation, plausible I think is how you pronounce it, but it's a type of steroid which enhances muscle mass, and it's proven to also increase physical endurance. So understandably, it's on the banned list in all sports because it provides muscle mass and it also provides endurance, which obviously gives athletes an unfair advantage over those that are not taking these substances. So I don't want to spend a massive amount and do one of my very, very long videos. I want to try and be kind of quick and to the point, because I'm still digesting information. I'm getting information through from various people in tennis, and I'm astounded really by what I am hearing and seeing. Obviously, those of you who follow me know that, my kind of main purpose really in tennis through my social media channels is to expose corruption within tennis, within the ATP, within the whole kind of infrastructure and organizations of tennis via the establishment, which I believe I have a lot of evidence that I can kind of point to, which addresses and confirms that. And this incident has just kind of highlighted that more than any other instance that I can remember of late, although there have been plenty of those as well. So essentially what I kind of just want to kind of discuss really is what essentially happened. So we now know that on March the 10th, Jannik Sinner took a urine sample, which a lot of players do. Obviously, they are tested very regularly and rigorously. He failed that urine test. This was during the time when he was actually in Indian Wells playing in the Masters event. It was then redone on the 18th of March. So 8 days later, it was redone, and he failed that again. Now, in both instances, Jannik Sinner failed the test for having a banned substance in his system. So obviously that results in an automatic suspension in tennis. So if you fail drug tests, one and the second one, maybe to back that up to make sure that the first one was accurate, would and should result in a suspension. So this happened to Jannik Sinner, but he was suspended for just 6 days, which is pretty inconceivable. Now, if you look at kind of just recent history, really, you look at someone like Tara Moore, who is a British player and was also have found a bad substance in her bloodstream, which she denied all knowledge of and said that she had no she never took it intentionally and she never had no knowledge of. It took her 19 months for her to get a decision from a tribunal to overturn the decision to suspend her from all levels of tennis. Now, Tara Moore is a lower ranked tennis player, so she is reliant on prize money to pay for all of her bills. It's her livelihood. 19 months it took her for her name to be cleared. We had the Swedish number one player who had just broken into the top 50, Mikael Yamar. Again, apologies for the pronunciation if it's wrong, but he missed a drug test. So he didn't even fail a drug test. He missed the drug test. And, he put forward mitigating reasons to why he missed those, but they were dismissed by the ITIA, which is the tennis kind of authority that looks after the drug testing and anything that's not anti-corruption, all of that sort of stuff. He was then banned for 18 months. Now, what's happened with Jannik Sinner is that he has been found to have failed these tests. They've let Jannik Sinner know. Jannik Sinner has then contacted or got in touch with a top legal firm who have then contacted the ITIA to demand, firstly, that this test result is not made public. Now, this is the first really big red flag, because a few years ago, the ITF, the International Tennis Foundation, that kind of, govern tennis, changed a rule saying that if anyone fails a drug test, it needs to be in the public domain. And the reason why they did this probably stemmed from the fact from an autobiography by Andre Agassi, where he confirmed that he actually had a silent ban for taking a banned substance. It was crystal meth, but it was a banned substance, and he said none of tennis, no one knew. It was a silent ban. And the ITF wanted to change that because it's important to have transparency in these circumstances. So first of all, this was not even allowed, but somehow his team, his legal team, have managed to get this done, right? So that's the first massive red flag in this situation. Another red flag is that Jannik Sinner decided to, and his team, because I'm sure he's got advisors to do all of this and people that protect him, they instructed On-Site Law, which are a legal firm that are based in London, that are also the long-standing lawyers of the ITIA. So the very same legal firm that represent the ITIA are representing Jannik Sinner. Now that, and I work in finance, I work with legal teams all along, and they will say, well, as long as it was done by a different solicitor, it doesn't matter. But this is the same legal firm. They're going to have the same partners, the same bosses. So you've got someone from Jannik Sinner's team that is essentially asking ITIA, who are then governed by the same legal firm, if they cannot make this information public knowledge, and they accepted. So bizarre. Now, what then has happened is that they have basically said, we don't agree with this, and we've got mitigating reasons. We've got a full explanation to why this was shown in Jannik Sinner's blood test. So you've got no recourse to suspend us or anything like that, and the ITA listened again. So Jannik Sinner was just banned for 6 days. Now, what is even more inexplicable is that he's had 2 blood tests that were taken in March the 10th and March the 18th, both negative, both failed for having a banned substance which enhances your performance and enhances your muscles. He then plays Miami on the 23rd of March. So at this point, the ITAE would have let, I'm sure they would have let the ATP know that one of their players had failed a drug test, that player being at the time he was the number 2. And that's also an important point that I'm going to pick up with you guys later. So he then plays Miami with 2 blood tests that he's just had that shows that he's got a banned substance in his system. And it doesn't matter at the moment if it's a billionth of a gram or however small it is, because we don't know how long he's had that in the system for. He could have had it in the Australian Open. We don't know. It could be the remnants of that. It could be a masking agent. We don't know. But what we know is that he shouldn't have this in his system. He then is allowed to play Miami. He wins Miami, playing some of the most unbelievable tennis, and continues his unbeaten run. So Jannik Sinner is on a phenomenal run. He hasn't lost a tennis match in 2023. His results have significantly improved in any other year before. He wins Miami with losing just the 1 set in the whole of the tournament. He loses 1 set. He played Dimitrov, who Dimitrov said he was playing the best tennis, as in Dimitrov was, of his career. Sinner beat him 6-3, 6-1 in just over an hour. and Dimitrov couldn't keep up with him. He just couldn't keep up with him. So Sinner wins that tournament knowing that he's just failed 2 drug tests. Okay? He is then provisionally suspended for just 6 days. Now, we've had players, Simona Halep being one of the most famous cases recently, who also tested positive for a banned substance. She denied that from day one. She appealed it, but they didn't believe her. They didn't believe her, but they believed Jannik Sinner. Okay, so that is a big issue, and this is why so many people are up in arms over this, because it depends on who that person is. It appears whether they can get any leniency or any fast track to any legal kind of decisions that favour them. So Jannik Sinner is then banned in between the time after Miami, just kind of prior to Monte Carlo. He then plays Monte Carlo. At this point, the second reading then is made aware to Jannik Sinner. So they've said, well, after Miami, you've actually failed the second one. So the legal team then go back and say, well, this can't be made public knowledge again because we're contesting it. And they will so the ITA, well, okay, well, what are you contesting with this time? Oh, the same reason that we're given before, the same mitigating circumstances. And I'll tell you exactly what those mitigating circumstances were. I don't believe them, but I will tell you them as they are, and it's up to you to decide as a viewer whether you believe them or not. So then he was then suspended for a few more days, but he was able to play Madrid. He played Madrid. He then picked up some sort of injury, hip injury is what he said, and he then pulled out halfway through the tournament. But then he was allowed to play for the rest of the season, French Open, Wimbledon, without any knowledge to anyone, even though that is against what the ITF have told us. He was able to do that and carry on. Now, I'm going to go on to the mitigating circumstances that have been provided by Jannik Sinner's legal team to why he tested positive to this banned substance. Now, the story we have been told is that Giacomo Nardi, who is the physio of Jannik Sinner, cut his little finger. So we're talking about his little pinky finger, and they showed evidence of that. And in Indian Wells, he had a very little plaster on his little finger because apparently when he was going into his box of stuff as a physio, he's going to have loads of books, he left an open scalpel kind of in his bag, which I find that bizarre. And he cut himself. Okay, so he cut himself. So he then has Jannik Sinner's fitness coach who tells Nardi that he's got this spray that he's got from Italy. He then tells Nardi to be really careful with it because it's got a banned substance in it. So he actually tells Nardi just to be careful with this because he's fully aware that Nardi is in close contact with Jannik Sinner. He is his physio. So he said, just be careful, but this may help it heal. Try Fumarate or whatever it is. So I went on Google and I had a look at this and I thought, well, what is this medicine? And apparently it helps healing, but it's mainly for psoriasis and for ulcers and different types. And you look at it and I cut my finger loads, and we all do. If we're going to cut anything, we cut fingers, and normal people put a plaster on it for a few days, it settles down by itself, maybe put a bit of moisturising lotion on after the plaster, and it settles. But then we are told that this Nardi character, experienced physio, one of the best physios in the world, he decides that he doesn't want to let it naturally heal. He wants to improve the stimulation of it to get it better. And, because, a pinky finger is very, very important in a physio's life. So he's then taking this medicine, and it's a spray which contains a banned substance. He then tells the tribunal that even though he was warned, he forgot about the warning. And now this is the because he said he travelled late he was having a few family issues and he was jet lagged. So he forgot about the warning because he was jet lagged. That is what he told them. Okay. Now, what he now does is he's now cut his pinky finger. He decides with a cut finger, and he treats, he's been treating Sinner for years, and he knows Sinner's body inside out. And apparently Sinner's got loads of lesions in his body. And that is where, obviously, contamination and also infection becomes a big issue. He then decides to massage Jannik Sinner. I don't know, with the plaster or without. With the plaster, you'd think there's no chance of contamination. Before a massage, basic hygiene will tell you that every physio has to wash their hands thoroughly before they do any new procedure or anything. It's just standard. It's just basic hygiene. Or he didn't, and if he didn't have the plaster, which is more likely for cross-contamination, it makes the risk of contamination and infection huge, because you've got an open wound and you're applying it to a player that has also got lesions which are also open wounds. So they were saying that because he was using this spray on his pinky finger, and if any of you have ever had a massage, I don't know how many massagers use their pinky finger as a prominent part of their massage procedure, that contaminated Jannik Sinner with this banned substance. So this is the story that they're going with, and it's up to you, as I said, if you want to believe this or not. But this is the official story that they've told the tribunal. So that happens, okay? So that is what they are telling us happened in this circumstance, which I find bizarre. And a lot of the newspaper articles have also said this is quite a bizarre explanation. Now, the reason why it's bizarre is for many reasons. First of all, Nardi is an experienced physio. His job is to protect Jannik Sinner's body. That's what a physio is there for. He should be checking every single substance that Jannik Sinner has, any substance that he has, because he's in close contact with Jannik Sinner, as a matter of course. This is a top physio, okay? He should then know the risks of having an open wound and not using a latex glove if that massage was deemed necessary. And if it got to the stage where he was worried about this finger, so he's obviously clearly worried about his little pinky finger because he keeps applying this spray to it, he should then go to Jannik Sinner and say, I'm not in a position as a physio to do any work on you because I'm not well because of my pinky finger and I'm using a substance that could cross-contaminate you, okay? And he's never done that. So this is the story that they're going with. He's an experienced one. Now, the story takes an even bigger twist in that apparently in Italy, this spray is known and has been used by other athletes to gain an unfair advantage. So we've had a tennis player called Stefano Bertoli, who was found to have the same bad substance, plausible, in his system in November 2023. So just a few months before Sinner was found it. He was found guilty and suspended from all forms of tennis for 4 years. Okay? He had an explanation. They didn't believe his. But they've believed Jannik Sinner's. They've believed this. Now, this same physio was part of the Bologna basketball team, which had the very same incident with a basketballer who was found to have clostridial in his system. This is the same physio, so he is aware of all of these risks. He should be doing a huge amount of checks. He shouldn't be taking any risks. This is Jannik Sinner, the most prized player of the tennis world. He's got more sponsors than any other player in the entire world. He is backed by the establishment more than any other player. But he decided not to do that, okay? So that is where I think there's a number of double standards going on. First of all, they kept it from us, which is inexplicable. They then worked with the same legal firm. What are the odds of that? From all of the thousands and millions of lawyers that there are in the world, they choose the same legal firm as the ITIA. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist. I just didn't think that adds up, okay? They then fast-track his decision. They then suppress the information from being made public. They then somehow managed to get a suspension for just 6 days, when we've seen a tennis player banned for 2 years for having a small trace of cannabis in her system. We saw Dan Evans get banned for over a year for having a small trace of cocaine that he took at a friend's wake and he was very apologetic for. He got banned for nearly 2 years. Lost his ranking. We've seen Simona Halep banned for over a year, nearly 2 years. We've seen Tara Moore. We've seen Maria Sharapova. We've seen countless players, top, medium, lower ranked players that don't get this privilege. So why do I think Jannik Sinner has got this privilege? Now, I'll tell you exactly why. Jannik Sinner was the golden boy of the establishment. Now, if you go back to March, February, April, every single advertisement was almost about Jannik Sinner. He had just won his first Grand Slam at Australian Open, beating Novak Djokovic. He was unbeaten. He then goes and wins Rotterdam. He is on an unbeaten run of form, playing phenomenal tennis. He is now on every billboard. He is on every advert. He is being pushed by all of the tennis media. And we know the tennis media work for the same guys. We know that. Okay? So he is being published and promoted, and start of the Sinner era. This guy is amazing. Everything is done. Sinner is so good with children. He's so kind. He's such an athlete. He's so humble. Everything is being done. Now, can you imagine the levels of millions and billions? He's worth 100 million with Nike alone, with sponsorship, long-term sponsorships. The amount of money that has gone into this one player. And that is the reason that if this came out publicly, it would finish him. Sponsors would go. They would look foolish. They've just promoted this guy as being one of an inspiration, a role model. He doesn't ever get angry. He plays phenomenal tennis. He plays tennis as it should. They would look foolish. And that is the reason that is grating me, is that there is a blatant double standard in place. And that double standard is also relating to corruption, because it only happens if you have power and money to be able to do something like this, and to do it so quickly, and to, just get a 6-day suspension. And he had his Indian Wells ranking points deducted, where he lost to Alcaraz in the semi-final, and the prize money was about $325,000, which for Jannik Sinner, in terms of what he earns, is literally pennies. It's nothing. But he kept his reputation in place. Now, I have heard from tennis players who have DM'd me, from media who have DM'd me, from physios who have DM'd me, to say this is total BS. Now I'm not saying that cross-contamination doesn't happen innocently. I believe that. Totally believe that. And some people have been the victim of that. And I feel every sympathy for that. But the problem here is the system. Jannik Sinner has exploited the system and has been allowed to exploit the system, when many other hundreds of players haven't had that privilege. It should have been made public knowledge. It's then, he's had a tribunal 4 or 5 months later. He should have been suspended during that time until he can be proven as innocent. He's been proven innocent now by a tribunal full of experts. We don't even know who these experts are. They say it's an independent tribunal. We don't know what information they asked. We know that there's holes in the story. We know that Nardi's friend has told him that we know that his injury was not done by picking up a scalpel in Indian Wells. So, we were told that where he bought the medicine, the fitness trader, it was a discrepancy. There was discrepancies all the way along the line, but they believed him. They believed him, and they said Jannik Sinner was not at fault here. He is completely innocent, and we believe this story. And it's up to you, because I know all the Sinner fans are in shock and they're going to support their man. I know most of the media are under the same bosses as Jannik Sinner and his sponsors, so they are not going to pick this up. It's going to be people like Nick Kyrgios, who doesn't care what people think of him. He doesn't care if he loses sponsorships. He will call a spade, and he has done all of his career. He's the one who is calling this out, okay? And along with a number of other players, Tennis Sangren, Liam Brody, Denis Shapovalov, Roberto Carlos Buena, other number of Tormor, Greg Wysetsky, a number of players that have been through this system as well are calling this out because it's not right. Okay. And, what I really want to see now is for there to be a full investigation, because it's all out in the open now. And this is the other thing. So I was told that this was never supposed to be out in the open. You heard Darren Cahill interview saying, well, it's out in the open now. He was almost shocked. So I believe there was a whistleblower that found out about these court hearings and Zoom calls that Jannik Sinner was having. Jannik Sinner was able to have a Zoom call to speak into a tribunal. No other players have had that privilege, to my knowledge, where they can have a Zoom call to protest their innocence within a few months. It just doesn't happen. So I think they tried to hide this from us, which raises alarm bells. And, I know a lot of people are giving me abuse and threats and, whatnot, and say, shut up. I'm not going to shut up about this because this is important to the integrity of the sport. I do not, for me, being a drug cheat is the worst thing anyone can do in a sport. So first of all, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that there's things that's happened here that I believe have only been fast-tracked and in Jannik Sinner's favour. I have nothing against Jannik Sinner from a personal point of view. He seems a nice chap. He's a young chap. He's a phenomenal tennis player. But in this instance, the story that him and his team have concocted and the fact that his legal team have desperately tried to keep this quiet doesn't sit well with me. So that is kind of my views. What I would want to see going forward is I would love it if WADA kind of took this case, which they said they may do, to the CAS, Court of Arbitration of Sport, and it's looked at as a fresh pair of eyes where there's no conflict of interest. I want to know details of whether Sinner was tested in the Australian Open. He's had this phenomenal run where he didn't lose. I want to know the results of those. Has this happened before? If this has happened, if it has been kept silent before, has he failed other tests? So, all of this is very pertinent information. We need to try and get to the bottom of this, because I think within the ATPA, ITA, there's a lot of powerful people that are backed by even more powerful people. You have to remember the chairman of the ATP is Andre Gadenzi. He's Italian. Cavalli is the CEO of the ATP. He is Italian. They have made a number of blunders over the years, and no one seems to be holding them to account. So yeah, I'm going to sign off. I said I wasn't going to go on for ages, but I have. But this is where we're at the moment. I just wanted to expose kind of a little bit in terms of what is happening here to people that don't know, and obviously put my views across. And I just think there's more to it than meets the eye here. There's been the failings in the system here. The system is clearly prejudiced against certain players, and I don't think that's acceptable. And I find the explanation given by his team to be dubious and questionable. And I think more is needed by journalists, good journalists. There's not many journalists out there that work independently. A lot of them care for their jobs and paying bills, so they will kind of toe the line and follow what the establishment want them to follow. So we're not going to get the truth from them. But there's some good journalists out there. Oliver Brown, I'm going to give you a shout, because I know you put your head out in the Olympics over contentious matters, and you will do the same again. So our faith is with you to try and investigate more, try and get us some more information. If Jannik Sinner has done this innocently and he's got nothing to no fault or no negligence, as they've said in the tribunal, then fair enough, fair enough. But the fact of the matter is, it shouldn't have been hidden from the public domain. He shouldn't have been fast tracked. He should have been suspended for a lot longer until the tribunal outcome had been made. And we've got to look at the system here. If Jannik Sinner can get all of this done and kept silence, then all the other players have to. And I think with that, all it's going to do is the ones that are genuinely doping, and we know that there probably is, they're going to have better chance of getting away with it, and not people finding out. So it's not good luck for tennis at all. It needs to be looked at. It's been 36 hours since it happened. We've had no statement from the ATP about this at all, which kind of tells you the story. A lot of the media have been coy with it because they're probably waiting for orders from their bosses with what direction they're going to go in. So any players out there, join the PTPA. You need to be a voice now against the establishment. There's going to be some players that won't join them because they're protected by the establishment. So, of course, they're not going to do it. But the players that aren't, get together, unite. The PTPA is the only forum really that I can see that can challenge this and make it equal and fair for everyone. So that's my message. Peace out to everyone. As I said, I will say it as I see it, and this is my views on this matter. I appreciate some of you are not going to disagree, and I appreciate some of you will agree. So whatever your views are, let me know in the comments below, whether you agree, disagree, or whether you're impartial. And let's hope that we can get some more information, because ultimately my passion is that tennis is a clean sport, but it's also a level playing field for everyone, regardless of whether you're number one in the world, number 1,000 in the world, regardless of your sex, your race, your background, your religion, whatever it is. Everyone should be treated equally in tennis, and that's always been my passion, and that's what I'll always keep fighting for. Okay, peace out, God bless, take care all.